Hey everybody, it's Jason again. It's the second day of the Blade SR actually arrived yesterday. I have flown it. I did some assembly work last night and made a few changes, and obviously installed some training gear, as you can see. I left off the last video saying that I was going to install the batteries in the transmitter, and the included batteries that came in the kit, at least one of the batteries was actually leaking. So I obviously didn't use them, but that was just kind of odd that that one of the batteries would have been leaking right out of the package. I did change the throttle spring on the transmitter, and you can still feel just a little bit of detent. There's a definite notch in between each. It's not as pronounced as it was originally when it was unmodified, but you can actually hear that kind of sawing sound. So there is some detent. It doesn't sit exactly where you place it. It kind of does drop into that notch. So I might have to modify that again. I remounted the gyro and mounted it on a couple of pieces of foam tape, kind of layered it up there. I put the signal wire, plugged the signal wire into the receiver so that I could control the gyro trim, or gyro gain rather, from the transmitter channel 5. And it did wind up at about 1230, seems to be roughly kind of the magic number. The tail doesn't tend to vane, and it's not doing much of the searching. It does it a little bit, but not too bad. I did remove the tail horizontal stabilizer, like I said I was going to. According to the manual, they say to, before you do anything, to check all the hardware and screws and everything and make sure everything's tight. I went over the whole model. Everything looked fine. As I mentioned, I did install the training gear. This is homemade training gear, and the reason I did homemade is two reasons. One, the hobby shop didn't have it in stock. I should have ordered it at the same time I did the model, but I didn't. And actually it was okay, because the training gear that is spec'd for this helicopter is actually a little bit too narrow, I find out. So this is a piece of 1/4 inch dowel rod, 4 feet long, and then these are just standard ping pong balls. I just drilled holes and used a little CA glue to hold them on. And it works very well. I'll tell you more about that in a minute, but I just used some zip ties to hold the dowels onto the skids. There's one on each corner, and the dowels do intersect through the center of the skids, not on the outside. And one is obviously over, and the other rod is underneath the other one. So that's pretty much it. It seems to work pretty well. I think it saved my bacon more than once. I've taken it up for, well, up is a relative term, but I've taken it out for 3 flights. The first flight was really, really shaky. The trims, it was horribly nose heavy, which was a surprise. Everybody says that it tends to be tail heavy. And I did remove that horizontal stabilizer, but I don't think that would make that much difference. Maybe it would. But I had to reposition the battery and play with the training gear a little bit, slide them towards the rear, and then even as it sits now, the trims, let's see, the elevator trim is the middle of the trim tab is about 2.5 clicks down. So by the end of the first flight, it was doing better. I actually had it a little ways off the ground for the first probably 5 or 6 minutes of the battery life. I was just basically scooting it around on the ground, and I'd power down the rotors and shift some things, just trying to get it to trim out. I would definitely be careful if you're a novice on your first flight. Definitely do the training gear, and I would recommend building your own or getting some longer training gear to fit to the helicopter. You definitely want them close to the length of the rotor blades. These rods, like I said, are 24 inches long, and the blades are 21, 22. So it sticks over just a little bit. The second flight, I got a little cocky. After I started getting things trimmed out, it drifted over, and I was kind of I was starting nose in, and it started drifting to the left, and I couldn't control it out, and clipped the fence, and actually banged up the end of this rotor blade. As you can see, the coverings gone off the blade, and then it put a little notch on the trailing edge or a little ding on the trailing edge of this blade. I just used some clear cellophane packing tape and repaired both of those. Looked over everything very carefully, made sure there was no other significant damage. The fly bar wasn't bent, the rotor head looked fine, all the linkages were tight. There were a couple of little plastic shavings on the main gear. It didn't shear any teeth off, but it definitely didn't do it any good. So watch that if you hit an obstacle. The main gear seems pretty delicate. Blade tracking was really good. I checked it last night. Just on the table, I taped the skids down and just checked the blade tracking, and it looked pretty good. It wasn't exact, it wasn't perfect, but it was pretty close. Blade tracking is a little off now, slightly. That's probably because the damage has affected the lift characteristics of the blades a little bit, so one's lifting a little more than the other. At least I'm assuming that's why that's that way. But it didn't seem to really do any other damage. It might be slightly out of balance now, just due to the change with the tape, with the weight of the tape and stuff. Anything that's spinning that fast doesn't take very much weight to throw things out of balance. The third flight was a pretty good run. I actually was able to do some good long hovers, pretty stable. The temperature was getting warmer. It was about 90 degrees outside, and I was worried that it was going to affect the lift a little bit, and it really didn't seem to affect it much. There was also a slight breeze, maybe 3-4 mile an hour breeze, and that really didn't affect it either. Once I was aware of it, at first I took off and wondered why it was drifting on me, and once I was aware of the wind, then I went, oh yeah, and I started to correct for it. So. When it first takes off, and this may be just me over controlling it or giving it, kind of goosing the throttle, but it tends to make a pretty hard left turn. The nose turns to the left about 45 degrees. Right after it lightens up on the skids. It kind of, and again, I may just be goosing the throttle. May be my fault. Once the battery starts to drain off, you lose power very quickly. I don't know how that will affect me in later, as things progress, if I'll become more sensitive to when it's losing power, but it kind of snuck up on me when I was flying. It was like, oh, there's, the power went away. There wasn't a whole lot of warning, and I think that's built into the ESC. It knows when the power level in the battery is getting too low, and it kills it. It calls it a soft shutdown in the manual, but it's not very soft. It's pretty abrupt. So just be aware of that. One thing I noticed, I'm flying it off the grass. I'm not flying it on a solid surface. I have a big backyard with not many obstacles in it, except for a fence. And this morning, obviously there was a little dew on the grass, and there are a lot of bugs on the blade. I wasn't expecting that. There was tons of bug carnage all over the leading edge of the blades, and the little grass on the tail rotor. That's kind of not surprising. But as far as the temperatures, the motor and ESC seem to be really cool at the end of the flight. The tail motor's pretty warm, almost too hot to touch, the heat sink on the tail motor. So it's not surprising that those motors burn out. The battery is cool, the ESC is cool, the main motor seems to be cool. I mean, there's a little bit of heat, but not bad at all. Let's see. Just a little FYI, they say in the manual that it's a 1.5 amp power supply, and that's to me that was a little bit misleading, because I was thinking it was that meant it was a 1.5 amp charger. Well, it literally is just the power supply. The charger is a 0.8 amp charger. It's taking about an hour and 45 minutes for the stock battery to charge. I was a little bit disappointed in that, because they were saying an hour, 1.2 to 1.5 on the high side. So, and they went 15 minutes beyond that. So that was a little bit disappointed. The charger does get warm during a charge, surprisingly warm. And so I would definitely not put it in a box or any place where it couldn't get ventilation. It probably needs to be get some airflow. The battery itself during a charge it's not even warm. So that's about it. I think the only thing I didn't talk about is the rudder and the elevator, or excuse me, the aileron trims. My rudder trim is set about, the center of the trim tab is about 1 click to the left, or one hash mark to the left, and it's about 2 hash marks to the left on the aileron. I'm interested to see how taking off the main gear will, or the training gear will affect the trim characteristics. I'm not looking forward to taking off the training gear and then having trim difficulties like I did on the initial flight. Hopefully it won't be that bad. Maybe by then I'll have enough. I'm definitely not going to take them off anytime soon. But so far I can report that I think the simulator has helped quite a bit. It's not perfect. It doesn't perfectly simulate the flight characteristics, but it does get you used to the controls, used to giving stick input and being able to do get your eye-hand coordination down, so that when you see the model doing something, you can correct for it, and you know how to correct for it. I can fly the simulator far better than I can fly this model, but I think it's probably just my being tense and being a little bit afraid that I'm going to do something wrong. With a simulator, there's not really any consequence to crashing. You just hit the reset button and away you go. Here it's a little bit different. You actually are risking a repair if you crash it. So, but biggest recommendation, 2 of them actually: get the simulator and get the training gear and watch that first flight, because the trims on mine were a little funky, and I had to kind of play with things to get it to kind of level in. So anyway, I think that's it for now. I'm hoping to post a video of an actual flight. It's just kind of hard to fly and shoot any kind of comprehensive video without somebody to help you. So might just do it anyway to give people some idea. There's plenty of other videos out there, but every little bit helps, I guess. So thanks a lot. See you later.